dais, and I will now call to order tonight's regular board meeting of the Antelope Valley Eastern Water Agency. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller.
Here.
Division 5, Robert Paris.
Here.
Division 4, George Lane.
Here.
Division 1, Shelley Sourceable.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Dwayne Chisholm.
Here.
Attorney Markman.
Tilden Kim appearing.
Thank you. And Holly Hughes present.
Thank you. Item 3, voluntary public roll call. If any member of the public wishes to introduce themselves, please feel free to do so now.
Hi, Keith. This is John Joyce reporting for the Roseman News.
I think I heard John and Vince.
Oh, go ahead then. Go ahead, Jim.
Vincent Dino, Palmdale Water District. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Keith. John Joyce reporting for the 3 community publications online and in print.
Thank you, John.
White Fence 3, Jack Cephas.
Hello, Jack. Item 4, public comments and period open to the public. If anyone wishes to address the board on any item not on the agenda, please feel free to do so now. If there are none, we'll go to item 5. May I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
This is Frank Donato. I move we approve item 5A1.
Thank you.
This is Director Sourceable.
Did I hear Shelley?
No, go ahead. You could do Audrey.
Okay, I'd second the motion.
Yeah.
Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam. Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes.
Shelley Sourceable.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you. There is no new business tonight, so we'll move along to item 7. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Yes. Director Lane.
Thank you, George.
This is Director Sourceable. I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam. Audrey Miller.
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes.
Shelley Sourceable.
Yes.
Frank Donato.
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you. Item 8A, Finance Committee. Director Donato, do you have a report?
Yes. The Finance Committee met last Thursday, and item number 8A1, we're going to have a presentation. We have a presentation by PFM Consultants, the second quarter ending June 30th, by Richard Beebe.
Thank you, Director Donato. Would you like me to start now?
Fine. It's okay.
Sounds good.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Holly, would you advance the slides? Keep going. This is just a written update. I won't read this. We have to go several more slides.
7.
Go to about 9.
They're all in this packet. Hold on.
Okay. Sounds good. You can start on one slide back. So the story of 2022 has been inflation and what the Fed will have to do to get under control and when it'll get under control. and what the impact will be on the economy. Earlier this year, there was concern the economy was falling into a recession, that the Fed would have to start cutting rates in 2023. However, the recent inflation number, especially today, and the last jobs report suggest the Fed's going to have to remain hawkish and that interest rates will remain higher and longer than previously thought. In fact, interest rates overall are at their highest level since 2007. Your portfolio, like everyone else's portfolio, has been impacted by the rise of interest rates, but benefits from new investment rates. So, like I
had one question about the recession. Are some people not saying we're in recession now?
I would say that the Bureau of National Research, Economic Research, will determine if it's an official recession. As you were suggesting, the first 2 quarters were negative GDP. The anticipation right now is the third quarter will be positive, but whether it's considered a recession or not will depend on that board. The other aspect of it is there were definite downturns in economic growth, but overall the economy was growing even during those past 2 quarters, in a sense. You know, if you're in housing or if you're in real estate, you were in a recession. If you're in other sectors, you're not in a recession. Hopefully that answered your question appropriately.
Or if you don't have a job.
Exactly. You know, but even there we'll talk about job markets, 315,000 jobs added in the last jobs report. The unemployment rate under 4% at 3.7%. So the job market remains strong. In fact, if we go to the next slide. Sounds good. This is sort of economic factors. On the tailwinds, what's being positive is you look at unemployment rate, come down significantly from the peak of the pandemic. June, it was 3.6%. The latest number was 3.7%, but that also reflected the labor force participation rate going up as people were entering. But 315,000 jobs were added in the last report. The anticipation is the Fed pounding down on interest rates will drive this up over 4% in the coming year. So right now the job market's healthy. Retail sales, if we go on the bottom number, it was flat in July, but it's 10.3% over where it was a year ago. But things that are negative is the consumer sentiment, upper right. It reached an all-time low as of the June report. It's up a little bit in August, but still remains low. So that means if consumers stop spending, that'll definitely put us in recession. And as I mentioned on the bottom right, if you're in real estate, especially home sales, I would say you're in a recession right now because that's been so significantly impacted. So in July, existing home sales were down 5.9%, 20% lower than a year ago. The 30-year mortgage at 6.24% is over double what it was a year ago. So again, certain aspects of the economy are doing good, certain elements are not. If we go to the next slide. As you were talking about, if we look at the left-hand table, you see that the last 2 quarters, quarter 1 and quarter 2, were negative. So for the overall, and that's sort of the generic definition of a recession. But as I was saying, the National Bureau of Economic Research will determine if it's an official recession. But as I was saying, aspects of it were going strong, others going weak. If you look on the chart on the right, what the forecasts were saying is that the fact that the expectations of a significant recession, significant downturn in the next 12 months has gone up significantly because the Fed is being very aggressive. If we go to the next slide, we show interest rates. On the chart on the right is Fed funds futures, so it reflects what the market thinks Fed funds futures will be at different points in time. The blue line was March, and the expectations were for a gradual increase in rates and then flat after that. The June, the orangish green line, was expectations for aggressive rate hikes, but then cutting in 2023. If I were to do this today, what it would look like is even more aggressive than the June number, but remaining flat. So what does it mean for interest rates? If you look on the chart on the left, the 2-year Treasury ended the quarter at 292. It's 375 today. The 30-year ended the quarter at 314, it's at 337. So interest rates are up significantly even since the end of the quarter. But if I were to take us back a year ago, the 2-year Treasury was at 23 basis points or 0.23%. again, you can see how significantly and rapidly interest rates have risen given how hot inflation's been. If we go to the next slide, what the impact is, and I'll really concentrate on the chart on the left. It shows you if you had $1 invested at January 1 of 2000 and how much it would grow on a market value basis through 6/30 of 2022. You see at the chart how it declines because what happens is when market values go up, when interest rates go up, the market values of existing securities go down. It's a uniform fact. So, for example, in August, your portfolio had a decline of about 1.3% or a negative market value versus amortized cost of $337,000. Just for reference, Leif's market value was down $2.4 billion as of June 30th, so down about 2.3% compared to only about 1.3% on your portfolio. So again, that's just a natural impact of rising interest rates. If we go to the next slide, this is just showing you the difference in where yields have been versus treasuries. So upper right hand's corporate notes versus treasuries, the bottom right's asset backs. What we've seen is these have all risen. Two aspects to it. It means a good opportunity going forward to buy interest rates, but it's also a sign that the market's getting a little more skittish about corporate securities and that we have to remain vigilant. I'm actually going to skip 3 slides and this is your portfolio snapshot. So on this, the statistics as of June 30th, and again, this is only the funds managed by PFM, doesn't include your other managed funds or they manage in-house or the funds in Leif. You can see that if I go on the table on the left, you can see that the market value is 25.7. But like I said, the amortized cost would be a little bit higher than that. So it's a decline in that. The yield at cost as of June 30th was 0.95% or 95 basis points versus the yield at market, what those securities would have yielded if we bought them as of June 30th was 2.65. So you're lagging the market. If I were to bring it today, your yield at cost is 132, but still below the market yields. If we look at the bottom right, you see the duration of your securities relative to an indicative benchmark. And you can see that most of your securities will mature in the next 12 months. This is a good thing for you because most of your securities can be reinvested in a new current market. So, for example, on September 9th, we bought a new corporate note for you. It was yielding 3.8%. On August, we bought a security that was yielding 2.9%. The one aspect of this is being short has really benefited the district when interest rates have risen very rapidly. But it may be a good time to think about, do you want to go longer if you don't need the liquidity and lock in those rates for a longer time frame? But that would take a longer discussion. If we go to the next slide, this is just showing you the boxes show you the allocation by policy. What's permitted, the dark blue bars indicate what's actually was in the portfolio as of June 30. You can see everything is in compliance. In fact, on the next page, we just confirm compliance with the code and policy. If we go to the next page, portfolio activity, this is showing you what happened in the portfolios as sales and not sales, but maturities and purchases. So we were adding more treasuries during the quarter. We actually were down, even though we bought some corporates during the quarter ending 6/30, we had more mature, so you were net down that. And again, federal agencies, we bought some, but more matured, so you were down for that. So we will continue to look for opportunities to buy more corporate securities right now, but treasuries remain the foundation of your investment program. Just to give you broader context, if we go to the next slide, this just shows you how those relative compositions changed over time. So you can see that there have been times that almost 50% of the portfolio, if not more, have been in corporate, meaning corporate commercial paper, negotiable CD securities. We're lower now, but we are trying to look for opportunities to increase that. And if we go to the next slide, as I was talking about earlier, when market values go up, when interest rates go up, the market values go down. So total returns, which include the value of unrealized gains and losses for the past year, have been negative. So the portfolio on an overall unrealized basis declined by 0.81% its return. Past 3 years, it's returned 0.66% every year for those 3 years. And you can see for the past 10 years, it's been 107. If we go to the next slide, this is just showing you the composition of the different returns. I'll go to one more slide. This one. This is showing you earnings, again, just on the managed portfolio on a realized basis. So what we see is if you look in the past 3 months, the portfolio's earned $41,000. That excludes those unrealized gains and losses on the portfolio. And if you look over the past 10 years, it's earned almost $3 million in realized earnings on that. That concludes the presentation I was going to make today. If there are any questions about that or any other aspect of the materials that were included in the agenda, I'd be happy to answer them. Any
Evidently
questions?
not.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Baddock.
Thank you very much.
The next item is 8A-2, which would be to, which is a board order to accept and file the report that you just received.
This Director Donato, I move we approve 8A2 and accept and file the PFM investment performance.
Do we have a second?
This is Director Sorsabal, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes unanimously. Thank you. Next
Okay.
item.
Yeah, it brings us to 8A3. This is consideration possible action on purchase order, Brax Company, process and pump equipment. This will be given by Operations Manager John Bozigan.
Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening, everyone. So part of our 2022-2023 approved asset replacement budget is capital project EN 23-01. And that is for a wash water recovery pump at the Quartzville Treatment Plant. Currently have 4 pumps in service. This will give us a spare pump. As you come up the driveway and you look to your right, you notice those 2 large ponds. Those are the wash water recovery basins. When we backwash, all the backwash water goes into those 2 ponds, and then we pump it back to the headworks of the plant. So this fifth pump, actually, the spare pump, will give us some redundancy, and it'll prevent downtime during the summer if one of these current pumps go out. We did not get bids on this pump. These are specialized pumps made by ABS, and they're made in Germany. That you have to buy them through the West Coast distributor, which is Brax Process and Pump Equipment. And there's about a 21-week lead time to get this pump, so we thought we'd better order it early rather than later. We did budget $75,000 for this item, and it came in at $60,202.05. So we're about $14,800 under budget on this item. With that being said, we'd ask the board to approve the quote submitted by Brax Process Pump and Equipment for this item.
Oh, okay, then Director Donato, I'll go ahead and move on 8A3, that we accept the 60,202.05 not to exceed.
Thank you.
This is Director Sorsabal, second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? If not, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes,
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Thank you.
that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Donato. Item 9, General Manager's Report.
Yes, Board President Dias, members of the board, this is the General Manager's Report for September 13th. I wanted to talk to you initially about a couple of items that staff has been following and I've been briefing the State Water Project Committee on. And the first one is Senate Bill 1020. This is a bill that was passed recently during this legislative session. And what it does is it accelerates the achievement of 100% clean energy, non-carbon procurement from 2045 to 2035. So in essence, that was a 10-year acceleration point. The original bill had a 15-year acceleration, and through the efforts of the state water contractors and other advocates, the final bill had a 5-year pushback with regards to that requirement. And this will have an impact on the state water costs as we move forward. And I'll highlight that in a little bit, but it will have a pretty big impact on our affordability, and that was communicated to the senator and his staff, and also the Senate in general, along with the Assembly and Governor's office. So what happened was the state water contractors took a neutral position on the bill because the amendments that were asked for by the State Water Contractors Association were included within the bill. As I mentioned first, the date moving from 2030 to 2035 was one of those. Also, there's a provision in that it can be extended to 2040 should there be any supply disruptions or other matters that just don't allow the date to be complied with, as opposed to having a drop dead date at 2035. In addition, we were allowed to place behind the meter solar facilities, which would allow to have self-generation of these items, whereas the original bill required all of these new green energy purchases to be purchases itself, and would have a significantly more significantly more expensive. And also they eliminated the fact that everything had to go through the Cal ISO balancing authority. So that also had a positive financial benefit from the original bill. Still pretty significant impact, even with the final bill coming through. So when you put all that together, this is what it kind of looks like. The bill passed, the governor signed it. And what they did not include in the bill was statutory language that would allow for cost mitigations associated with achieving these mandates. So we'll have a cost impact of $1.2 billion to reduce the time from 2045 to 2035. If it had been down to 2030, we would add another $2 billion on top of that. But just to get to 2045 is going to cost $4 billion. So we're looking at a total of $5.2 billion in additional costs to achieve this goal of having all green power, and that's going to come down to all of the contractors. The state water contractors are working on a letter to work the senators and the various representatives in the next session, and they're pushing for a funding bill to offset the additional costs. And so that'll be one of the major objectives. There was some recognition that that water affordability will be greatly impacted to achieve these particular goals. So that's my report. I just wanted to provide this information for your just for your information and understand of what's happening at some of the things that are happening at the state level.
This is Director Donato. Did you say that's going to impact financially the cost of water?
Yes. Yes.
So the second question is, so when we have the heat waves, are they going to penalize all the people that have electric cars that are using the extra power?
That's we'll find out, Frank. I don't know where this is all going to come.
Where we at? I know I'm.
I think we're coming to a head here where all these lofty goals are going to end up having financial consequences that just aren't going to be attainable.
That what you just said, that makes the most sense of the whole conversation right there, because every department and these tools we're trying to modify are becoming more and more a disaster than anything else.
Correct.
I know. But we have to deal with it. But that's very interesting. At least you gave us a heads up on what the heck we're going to have to deal with.
So when we start talking about future costs over the next 10 or 15 years, where we're looking at our future operational costs, just knowing that we have these kinds of obligations that'll have to be financed, it's something to consider. And this is not the only thing. If this was just the only thing, that'd be one thing. But there's a lot of other areas that will impact our affordability of water.
There was Director Lane. I just read recently there was a bill that's either introduced to the state Senate or it's going to be introduced just regarding subsidy for people's water rates right there.
Yes. Yeah, that's
two-edged sword.
Yeah, because we have a situation not only for water rates but also electric bills. The bills are so high people can't pay them, and so they're coming in with a bill to help with. To subsidize those bills. So where does that come from? It comes from somewhere. Okay, the next area wanted to talk.
I got a quick question, because I don't know if you're going to discuss about. I know the bullet train is going to be an issue coming up. Does that run on electric?
It sure does.
So what are they going to do? Panel the top of the train to I mean, where are they going to get the power for that?
The power is going to be the source of the power will be various solar, wind, and other green generation, hydropower, things like that. But the biggest cost that's associated with this is the distribution. There isn't sufficient distribution facilities to move the power from where it's being generated to where it's needed. And there's going to have to be a significant cost in rebuilding this infrastructure in order to be able to achieve that. And as they build that infrastructure, they have a charge which is called access. It's called TAC. It's a transmission access charge. And that is could be as much as 50% of our electric bills just getting access to this backbone system that they have to build, which is going to cost billions of dollars also. So because we have changed where the electricity is generated, but we have not changed where the demand is located.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So more to come. Any other questions on Senate Bill 1020? Like you say, this isn't good, but it was a lot worse before. So at least we're able to buffer some of the costs. Hopefully, we'll be able to do more in the next legislative session. The next item I wanted to talk to the board about is the Delta Conveyance Project. And the environmental document for the Delta Conveyance Project is out for public comment at the present time. I thought that this would be a good time to kind of brief the board on the latest as far as the provisions of the Delta Conveyance Project and the draft environmental impact report. And just to refresh the public's memory and the board's memory of what the Delta Conveyance Project is, it's the single tunnel project that is proposed by DWR, and what they're trying to do is restore the reliability of the State Water Project and kind of improve the infrastructure that works through the Delta. So what the project contains is the construction of some new intake facilities along the Sacramento River, north of the Delta, just south of Sacramento. And as I mentioned, it's a single tunnel that moves water through these facilities to the south. The objective is to protect the State Water Project from potential seawater rise, climate change, seismic risks, and the aquatic conditions or the conditions that occur when we have transportation through the Delta, where the high power pumps that are on the south of the Delta change the direction of the flow of the outflow outside of the Delta. So they're trying to avoid those impacts. This will allow DWR to provide additional water that currently is not available to the project at the present time. So when we talk about, the way to think about it is we're looking at long-term reliability on a year-in, year-out basis of somewhere between 50 to 60% at best. And this is trying to move that reliability back up to 60 or 70%. So that's the benefit. We look at the timing. You can see here that the EIR was started back in 2020. They spent 2.5 years drafting the EIR. We've got these 2-month period here for public comment, and then they're expecting another year or so to complete the final draft before it's released at the end of 2023. And so what EIR is supposed to do, it evaluates and discloses all the potential environmental impacts and then identifies feasible mitigation measures that can offset those and reduce the impact or the environmental impact on the project area. Let's see. Can you help me there, Holly? Doesn't seem to be forwarding. Thank you. The proposed project is referred to as the Bethany Reservoir Alternative. It's the alternative that's the furthest to the east. I have a map here in a second. I'll show you what that looks like. What we have is 2 intakes, 3,000 CFS per intake on the river itself. We have some conceptual drawings I'll show you for a total offtake of about 6,000 CFS. And then the tunnel actually bores and goes underneath the Delta and comes out at near Bethany Reservoir, where it is then put into the forebay for the pumping plants on the south. There was 8 conveyance alternatives that were studied. And so you can see that there's quite a few facilities here. Also, a no project alternative was also looked at. Yeah, this isn't working anymore, so I don't know what I did. All right, so what we have here is, here's an idea of what the map looks like. I'll try and, I know it's a little funny here, but here's where the intakes are. Sacramento is up in this location up in here. And so it comes down south. Once they get it into the intakes, then it'll take this eastern alignment is the preferred project, has the lowest environmental impact. and then follows this orange line, which is called the Bethany Alternative, and gets it down to the Bethany Reservoir, which in essence is where all of our pumps are located, both us and the federal project both. These areas here are what they call shaft locations, where they either put the tunnel equipment in or maintenance shafts for after the project is complete. So they're all identified, and the potential impacts are associated with those. This eastern alignment while it's a little bit longer, does have a lower cost that's involved with it because of the travel time. I-5 is over in this general direction in here. So there's not much infrastructure in here, and just to go between here and here in improving roads and other things that would be necessary really added to the cost. So that's why the eastern alignment was selected. There we go. Thank you, Holly. And so this is what one of these the northern intakes look like. Here's the Sacramento River down here. You can see there's some concrete wall, trailing walls across both of these, and then there's this big long screen here that allows the water to go in, and it's a fish screen and keeps the fish going by. There's always going to be water passing by. And so they're going to pull the water in. They go through a sedimentation process where the silt and various materials are filtered out, or not filtered, but actually settled out. And then we go to the outer shaft, and then it goes below. This is on the very north end of the project. That's what these are conceptually looked at. You can see it's a pretty large structure. And then here's the pumping plant where the water would end at the south end of the structure near Bethany Reservoir. You can see it's got some surge tanks and some surge basins for that. And then here's your pumping plant here. Notice that there's a substation that's real close by for power to be able to pump all these electrical pumps and get the water where it needs to go. So that's what that looks like in concept. And then if you're looking at one of these tunnel shafts, you can see here, this is either 75 to 125 foot in diameter. So you can see it's a pretty good size site. Here's where they would stockpile tunnel material, the soil and various materials they'll take out, the tunneling machine will take out. It's stockpiled here. Or in some cases, they have a conveyor where they can conveyor it off-site to potential rail locations where they can move that material by rail. To give you an idea, what we have here, this is what you have a tunnel. Whoops, we have a tunnel here. This is 125 foot in diameter. This will be 200 feet or so below ground. They put the tunneling equipment in here and they run it across. This is a maintenance shaft that would be installed along the way. And then here you have a retrieval shaft that would be built where this comes out, and then we go on to the very next one. So gives you an idea of kind of what the process is. It's fairly straightforward. This whole length is like every 15 miles or so, 10 to 15 miles, they got to come up with this type of structure. So when they build it, that's what they're doing. As far as operations go, need to be here. So the actual project would be operated in conjunction with the existing State Water Project and CBP intakes to the south. So it's not all the State Water Project's going to go into the tunnel per se and come out. There's going to be a dual system that'll be utilized in order to be able to meet the future needs. but the tunnel provides an opportunity to be able to get water when there's excess flows. And as I mentioned, the fish screen, will have particular flow requirements. They'll have some pulse protections and low-level pumping requirements to make sure that the fish are not harmed in any way. And the proposed intakes would allow us to catch those excess flows that we're unable to utilize at the present time because of the various inefficiencies in the delta as far as moving water across the delta. Now, but I thought I would go through a couple here. Go on to the next one here. This is the eastern alignment. This is the central alignment, and you can see that some of these. This was a good example as you go through the EIR. You can see where it highlights particular significant impacts. And then you come down to the reservoir, to the Bethany Reservoir proposed project. There's no significant impacts. So there's one right in here, but there's considerably more in the other portion, in the western portion. So that's kind of how some of the analysis works out. Also, just looking at land use.
Can you go back?
Sure.
I have one question. I mean,
sure.
This has been going on for over 10 years. I mean, correct. So is this a stalling process up north? I mean, what is going on? Because the amount of money being spent on engineers and consultants sooner or later is going to be more expensive than the pipe.
Yeah, well, if you remember correctly, and I think what you're referring to, Director Donato, is Governor Brown had a twin tunnel concept that he was promoting when he entered office. So there was considerable amount of work done on what they called the water fix at the time. It was a twin tunnel project, somewhat similar. And some of the information that was derived from that particular project was incorporated into this project. So now the conveyance project, as it's termed now, has been redefined because the governor, one of the first acts that Governor Newsom instituted when he took office was to scrap the twin tunnel project and support a single tunnel project that you see here. So that's why you're seeing, we talked about it 5 or 6 years ago about the twin tunnel project, and now over the last 3 or 4 years we've been talking about the conveyance project and going through this. And there is some overlap in materials as far as that goes, but there is a lot of engineering and preliminary engineering and soils work and other exploratory work that has been done on the single tunnel project and the new alignment.
Well, what he did was he changed the name so the general public wouldn't know what this project's all about.
Well, he redefined it as modernization of the current system, and it certainly needs that. The idea that the twin tunnel system was a little higher in capacity, but it really the single tunnel is primarily a state water project and not a CBP project. So consequently, the amount of water that was going to be utilized in the two-tunnel system for the state water project remains the same. That's what's necessary to have it economically as possible, I should say. I don't want to call it economical, but it's as economical as it can be, given the size of the pipe versus the quantity. If you get much smaller, it doesn't. You don't have enough volume to justify the cost. And if you get it much bigger, obviously the costs get much greater than what you can actually get through the pipe. So or what the water that's actually available. So this kind of right sizes the project for the type of cost, and you try to really try to maintain that balance between cost and capacity. But it has been going on since, I'm sure you've heard about the Bay Delta hearings and all of that started in the late 90s and early 2000s. So that's been going on for a long time. Just to follow up here a little bit more, they look at land use as another example here. They have 61 to 93 permanent buildings that they either need to relocate or remove in some fashion. And that's it's a fairly insignificant amount compared to what it could be. And then they have some open space issues, and the conversion of the farmland is considered an unavoidable impact. Although quite a bit of the spoils areas and the other areas will be reclaimed in farmland once they're completed. But there will be a significant impact that's unavoidable there. So this is what the EIR does, is go through those and takes a look at what those impacts are. And then finally, we always look at the fish and the aquatic species. We looked at 21 different species, and we looked at mitigation measures in order to be able to protect the species. So the impacts that they identified in the EIR, this is just some of them, but acoustical effects as they're going through underneath the various channels and that type of thing, sediment disturbance, possible physical injury, water quality degradation, reduced prey availability, and reduced predation. And so they look at all the bad animals that are eating things and see if they're going to be around or if they're going to stay away because of all this work being done. And then, the reduced habitat associated with the footprint. So to provide some mitigation measures for this, so they want to control the underwater sound and implement a fish rescue and salvage plan that they'll actually try and save some of these fish that might be stressed, and restoring some new habitat, and just avoid trying to do work when a large amount of fish are migrating through the region. So those are some of the mitigations that were identified in the EIR, just for your information. So in conclusion, the public review is open for comment. It started on the 27th of July. It's good to the 27th of October. And then there's various ways in which to be able to provide comments. The state water contractors has to provide comments on behalf of the state water contractors, which with regards to this project previously, and those I'm sure will be included. And that concludes my little bit. If there's any other questions that you have, if I can't answer them now, I'll certainly figure them out and get back to you on those. Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the standard weather condition report. There's no rain anticipated for the next 10-day period. You can see that we're looking here at these are our months here. We're just closing out the year. No real rain to be added to the system. Here's the reservoirs throughout the state, and you can see there's quite a bit of gold that's involved in these. Nothing's full, so everything's below average for the most part, and getting ready for the new rainy season, hopefully to begin early this year in November. some relatively good news, and I say it's relatively good news. This is Lake Orville. This is where we're going to end up the year. And you can see a couple of the previous dry years, we were much lower, these three in here. So we got a little bit more water, not a whole heck of a lot, but we still got 1.3 million acre feet within the facility. And that's they were anticipating being closer to 800,000. So it's a little better than what they had anticipated. We look at San Luis Reservoir. Once again, we have the same thing. This is the line is the average, and then this is where we are right now. Once again, considering our dry years, we're entering the year with a little more in San Luis than we've had in the past. As far as our operations go, we're using about 60% of our capacity for our recovery system. Extraction well 24 is complete and back online. The Quartz Hill treatment plant maintenance staff are responded to a leak in Leona Valley pump station, and that was last Saturday. And then we had a little bit of a scare with some of our sodium hypochlorite providers. We had a rail car that was stuck out someplace and prevented our normal sodium hypochlorite provider to provide us our routine weekly delivery of sodium hypochlorite. Staff was able to get some secondary chemical suppliers, and so we're working with them to fill in the gaps, and our primary supplier should be back online here real quick. We look at the agency operations. We're going between 17 to 18 to, I believe that's almost 16 million gallons a day from our various sources. We got this is as you all know, it's been very, very warm, and so we've had some real. Our flows have been high, and we had planned and anticipated those. And so we're moving along, and we're meeting the water demands that our customers have for us, even during these very warm and peak periods. Winter maintenance are also being scheduled and currently being scheduled. So that's where we're at. From a water quality point of view, we got our THMs collected, and the next collection will be back in November. The turbidity in the water is still real high, and that'll be that way for a little bit. And our microsynthesis testing is in October. And the good news is we received our renewal for our ELAB certification, so we can continue to operate the lab as a certified laboratory. As far as upcoming events and schedules, we got a Zoom meeting for the Integrated Regional Water Management Plan stakeholder meeting. We got an AV Edge quarterly luncheon on Wednesday, the 21st. And then the AV Water Master Board meeting on September 28th. My schedule is I will be on vacation the end of September from I believe it's the 23rd to about the 1st. And then I'll be back. That's my last vacation of the year. And answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Dwayne? If not, thank you very much. Good report. Item 10, are there any director's reports? Item 11, do we have an attorney's report tonight?
Yes, President Dias. So several weeks ago, we sent an e-alert regarding Senate Bill 1100, effective January 1st, 2023, because it is a significant Senate bill. I'd like to recap the e-alert and the bill itself and the effect on public hearings and whether and when disruptive members of the public in a public hearing can be removed. So Senate Bill 1100, effective January 1, 2023, amends the Brown Act to provide the uniform standards for when and how a disruptive member of the public can be removed. Currently, the Brown Act allows local governments to establish rules of decorum to manage public comment, but courts have held that under the First Amendment, that individuals may be ejected from public meetings only if they're actually disruptive in the meeting. So Senate Bill 1100 provides that the presiding officer must first warn an individual that their behavior is disruptive and that the failure to cease their disruptive behavior could result in a removal from the meeting. The individual may then be removed if they do not promptly cease their disruptive behavior. Importantly, Senate Bill 1100 adds another feature that a prior warning is unnecessary if the disruptive individual is using force or makes a true threat of force. And under this bill, disruptive behavior is defined as behavior that actually disrupts, disturbs, impedes, or renders infeasible the orderly conduct of the meeting. And so under these standards, I've already spoken with Madam Secretary, and when this bill becomes effective beginning of the year, if we are still conducting these meetings via Zoom, Madam Secretary does have the ability to remove that disruptive person from the Zoom meetings. So we already have talked about the implementation of that in virtual meetings if necessary. And then lastly, if there is a willful disturbance by this disruptive person, it can be punishable as a misdemeanor under Penal Code Section 403. So that concludes my summary of Senate Bill 1100, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Tilden? Apparently not. Thank you very much, Tilden. That was interesting to know.
You're welcome, President Dias.
Item 12, are there any requests for future agenda items? If not, we'll skip old business because there apparently is none and go to item 14, closed session. Dwayne, is there a reason to go into closed session tonight?
Yes, there's item for item C.
Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, this is Rob. I move we go into closed session.
Thank you.
This is Director Miller. I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
George Lane,
Yes.
Shelley Sorsable,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
Keith Dias.
Yes, the measure passes. Holly, would you please help us make that transition?
Yes, please stand by.